What's up, heathens? How ya doing? I'm the Godless engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today, we're taking a look at a clip from The Line. If you will, please go down below and make sure you follow The Line to catch more of my appearances when I host over there. Today, we are taking a call from somebody named Marty. Marty thinks that he can prove that God exists using mathematics. Marty seems to think that the universality of mathematics inherently proves that God has to exist. Then we kind of go into a very nuanced discussion of how mathematics exists in reality, or at least our understanding of mathematics as like an emergent property of any space-time system. And then we finally wrap it up by discussing intelligent design and the flaws that intelligent design has. So if you heathens want to flock around and find out how wrong Marty is about mathematics proving God, then please stay tuned.
I'm going to close this window and talk to Marty once again. Marty, let's try it a second time. Are you with us?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Lo, you are with us always, even into the ends of the earth. What's on your mind?
I tried calling. I called, I think it was like last week or something like that, and I talked to Matt Dillahunty and Jeremy, I believe is his name, and we talked about the fact that I had brought up the fact that mathematics is the one thing that actually brought me to the notion that there was, at the very least, an intelligent designer, a creator to this place. And I tried to bring this up to... What's that?
Well, I'm just wondering, like, I mean, that's you say that is what convinced you, and I'm just wondering how does math like prove that?
Well, ultimately it becomes this question of like, I mean, it kind of gets like presuppositional, and I don't want to go there so much, but it's sort of like the conversation sort of forces us to. Like you had just said, you would talk to the caller before, I believe, and you said, imagine a number line. We don't know where you at or on it, and it extends in different directions in both sides, both positively and negative, to positive and negative infinity. And so my question, and this is the question I brought up to, I think it was Dr. Jeremy is his name, and Matt, was that where does this mathematical number line that you just spoke about come from? They were saying that mathematics is an emergent property of the complexification of nature. So it's an emergent property. So it's a concept, we just conceived of it in our minds, and then it's an emergent property of nature, etc. But my only problem with that is like, where does this number line, as you're saying, it's infinite, it's ordered.
Right.
There is an order.
But any universe that is going to occupy a space is going to have mathematics like a part of it, because mathematics is, we're going to be comparing geometries, we're going to be calculating spaces is going to, so like these numbers and everything that we are conceptualizing here, I mean, these things are just like, I guess you could call them emergent properties of just any universe that would actually occupy a space. So like, that's not actually proof that a God exists, because any space that would exist, like any universe that contains space, time, and everything like that we would exist in, would be mathematical in some sense. So this doesn't actually point us towards a God existing, or that there needs to be a designer.
But the question and this actually gets right to what you were just saying, if you're using mathematics to look at literally every universe multiverses that could possibly exist, what I'm asking is, where does that come from in which gives you, the ability to even use it in the first place? If it's an emergent property of nature, meaning it's just the complexification of nature, we look upon nature, we conceive of this math, and we, in this sort of sense, induce it onto nature. Well, then how in the world do we use this, according to you, this infinite number line? How do we use that to explain things that were pre-math? Meaning, if mathematics is an emergent property of nature, evolution, that sort of thing,
what is
then we
pre-math?
say, okay, well, that's my question. There can't be a pre-math. This is why it gets presuppositional. For instance, if we were just to say,
yeah, but
I want to talk
presuppositions
about
are not going to be effective in this conversation. So, like, I mean, I feel like if we can leave out presuppositions, like especially unfounded presuppositions, like there's no reason to suggest pre-math,
Well, except you do. Because if you're saying that mathematics is an emergent property of the complexification of nature, then what you have to say, and that's your stance, then you would have to say that everything that was before that complexification, you could not use mathematics to describe it. And there's a problem with this too, Because even if you're to say, let's say we all agree.
Well, hold on. Can we visit that for 1 second? Can we visit that for 1 second? Because what I said was that any universe that would occupy space would be mathematical. Like it would have ratios, it would have geometries, and all this other stuff. So it's necessarily like it's a necessarily logically necessary thing for it to exist, right? And so my question is, what's before that? Like what exists outside of time and space? Like, does time exist outside of time and space?
What I'm saying is that before you even can talk about a first thing, and this is what I mean by we actually all agree on this presupposition. You guys actually agree to this too, because before we can even talk about a first thing, let alone what's beyond or outside of this first thing, that would necessitate a number line to say there's a first thing, a second thing, a third thing, etc. Not only that,
I'm not saying a number line physically exists
literally
somewhere.
Well, no, it doesn't. It's a metaphysical, which actually shows you that there's a supernatural aspect to it. Let me explain.
No. Me conceptually positing that a number line, like this is a concept in math for us to like visually demonstrate like the wide range of numbers that do exist in our understanding. That has like no bearing on anything that you're talking about here. Like that's a conceptual thing in math that we use in order to like understand things in reality, but that doesn't mean that it's supernatural. Like number lines aren't supernatural. These are just things that are useful for us in understanding numbers, I guess, like sets of numbers. I don't know. Seth, did you have any thoughts?
They're not even. Yeah, well, no, because they're not just like useful. It's the foundation of literally every science that's out there. In fact, if you just look on like AI and that sort of stuff, it'll even tell you that there's no science is complete without math. Even in fields that appear not to require much math, basic calculations or statistical analysis may be still used in research and data interpretation. So when you say it's just something that we conceive, that's actually incorrect, because I don't conceive that 2 + 2 = 4. That's an absolute fact.
I said the conception is the number
in everybody's mind.
It's not. No. I said that these kinds of things that we're talking about here. I said that these kinds of things, like mathematical things, like math as a part of reality in general, is a logical necessity for any region of space time that has like space in it, like that anything would exist within. Like it's a logical necessity is what I'm saying. So like it being a logical necessity,
it's a number line,
not a number line. I'm moving past a number line. I don't know why the fuck you're focusing on number lines here.
Because the number line is the thing that actually establishes the numbers in the order that they're in. 3 comes after 2 and 5 comes after 4, and that never changes to literally anybody anywhere. It doesn't matter what language you speak, even what planet you're on. In order for us to even understand something like the Higgs boson equation, that requires us. That's a big mathematical equation. If the Higgs boson is the thing that created everything, and we're using mathematics to explain it, and yet you're saying that the number line, as we're just 1, 2, 3, etc., is an emergent property of the physicality of nature, then how in the world are we using this emergent property to go before math, pre-math, and explain the universe using math? That doesn't make any sense at all.
So how are we using math to explain the inflation? Yeah, sorry. It's just when you gish gallop like this, Marty, it's really hard for me to address everything that you're saying because you just keep repeating the same things over and over and over again, and I never get a word in edgewise here. I mean, I'm pretty secure in my understanding and grasp of math, and I don't know what you're talking about when you talk about there being math being used prior to a space for math to be applicable to. Like, I don't understand. That concept.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you are saying. That's what you're saying.
I'm not saying that. Seth, have I said that at all? Have I said that at all?
So
no, that's the position that is a necessity
Marty,
for. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
If I may, aren't we in need of reversing the looking glass a little bit? We have developed the mathematics that we use to be able to measure the universe in which we live. And we realize that those measurements work because they work, right? So if 2 plus 2 equals 4, well, these are processes that are descriptive, not prescriptive. And I'm really sort of beyond all of that, struck by how it's kind of a pedantic question. Like, what kind of designer are we defending in this regard? I'm sorry, there's mathematics and mathematical equations and measurements work. Therefore, there is an intelligence out there somewhere. I'm having a hard time latching on to the importance. If there was an intelligence that created the mathematical objective standard by which we all must live, and then that intelligent agent disappeared, what do I care? So I'm asking, what do you care, Marty?
What do I care? I guess.
I mean, I'm asking if
I don't even know
there was a designer, and that designer is totally uninvolved beyond setting some sort of an objective mathematical standard 13.8 billion or more years ago, then what? What
I don't know. That's a total hypothetical. I'm not dealing with hypotheticals. What I'm dealing with, those are all hypotheticals. I'm not dealing with hypotheticals. What I'm dealing with is that when we look at science, there's not a branch of science that doesn't use mathematics. Correct. That mathematics is universal. It's ordered. It goes 1, 2, 3. Not only that, every single number has its correspondence in geometry, and none of that changes. We don't get to decide whether a hexagon is a hexagon. So when we talk about, mathematics is just something that's conceived, if we conceive it, just like if I conceive a song, I can change the chorus of that song. And it's totally up to me because it's a conception. It's something I made in my mind. Can you change the properties of the number 7? Or is the number 7 always going to be a prime? Is it always going to be after 6?
I disagree with your premise. If we have developed the processes to measure the dimensions of the world that we live in, and we know that those processes work, it doesn't mean there was an agent at the beginning, an intelligence that necessarily put all that in place. And I'll tell you, if you want to go and present to me the idea that there is an intelligent designer, I just released a whole speech on intelligent design and why, beyond any concept of mathematics, the idea that the world is, the universe is intelligently designed absolutely falls apart at the most cursory of scrutiny. So I just find the entire... And we can talk about math all day. Do you want to talk about intelligent design on the more macro spectrum? Because I'd love to do that.
Well, I guess we got to first get past that. If we're going to talk about intelligent design, we have to first talk about intelligence. And one of the ways that we actually transmit information to one another scientifically, no question whatsoever, is through the subject of math. Once again, as we were saying, you guys just talked about particles, particle accelerators, CERN, the Higgs boson, tomography, gravity, light years, cell division, electron.
I'm going to put you on mute, Marty, because you're reiterating the same shit over and over. And I think we've been more than patient. I just think he's looking at it through the looking glass the wrong way, where he sees mathematics as prescriptive. And I think these are processes that we have, these are measurements that we have developed that work. I'm not a mathematician. But beyond that, if he's going to say, well, there is an intelligent designer because math, I'm like, well, you have just started an entire much larger conversation about what intelligent design even looks like. Do you have any final thoughts, John, before I move on?
Not really, I guess. I'm very unpersuaded by this mathematics argument, just because we have natural explanations for why the universe is mathematical in nature and everything like that. And just because we've been able to describe nature mathematically and been able to understand nature with its mathematical basis, I don't think that that's any kind of evidence for a God. I would need to hear some kind of convincing argument, and I just don't think that it exists.
I don't know. We look at intelligent design and I think, all right, well, math. So what? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I just released a speech on this. It's called Seth Andrews versus God, who is the better intelligent designer. And we say, all right, fine. If you want to say that there is an intelligence behind the design of life, the universe, and everything, then we got to talk about design, whether it's the testicle, whether it's the female birth canal, whether it's the appendix, whether it's animals that have to eat each other alive, whether it's being right-handed or left-handed and having a dominant and a near useless hand, coding problems in our genome, a sun that gives us cancer. I mean, just one thing after the other. And so we can speak in these esoteric ways about math. But like, if you want to talk about design, I think those are also much more interesting conversations as well. Design my ass.
Well, Heathens, Marty's call was rather interesting, but I'm not convinced. But I do want to know what you thought about his arguments. Do you think that mathematics can prove God? Do you think that a God is required in order for any universe to be mathematical in nature? Do you think mathematics is more of an emergent property of any kind of space-time system? Or do you think something else explains mathematics? And then finally, how do you feel about intelligent design? Do you agree with the flaws that both Seth and I pointed out? Let me know down below in the comments. And while you're down there, why don't you smash that like button and subscribe if you like this kind of content. And don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.